Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What Diane and I hope to convey to you this afternoon is how to start an exercise program, but also giving you the preparatory tools and giving you the resources that you need to be successful. So what we're going to talk about today is really just scratching the surface on how to get started. If at any time you have questions, are unclear about what we're trying to communicate, please stop us and we'll take a step back and get all of our questions answered. Okay. Looking at an exercise program is just one component of how to approach your health. What you'd really like to do is to look at all facets of your life. The primary area that we're going to focus in on is your physical well-being. But you can see that emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and mental well-being all play a role in approaching a whole health. So our focus today again is on the physical well-being, and we're going to spend a great amount of time talking about that. Why is physical well-being important? Staying fit and healthy gives us a lot of opportunity to rest, manage our stress, feel good, maintain our weight, maintain our health, reduce diseases that crop up on us as we age, like diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol. And these are the ways that we get to do that. Through regular physical activity, through eating well and mindfully, and rest and relaxation. So these are the areas we're going to cover today. The eating well and mindfully is already being covered by Susanna Southern. She did a presentation a couple months ago about how to eat well. So please bear with us as we don't cover that particular area. Some tools for you to remember before you get started and some questions to ask yourself. Am I ready to do this physically? So talking with your physician, getting their approval, getting their direction, as it were, on where to get started. Knowing your physical health is very important because if you have a medication that you're on that alters your heart rate or your blood pressure, if you start up into an exercise program not taking that into consideration, it can be dangerous. You could get hurt or you could make your situation more worse. You want to complete a physical activity readiness questionnaire, and what this is a questionnaire that really focuses in on cardiovascular fitness, heart disease, and orthopedic concerns. And again, that kind of goes back to number one, consulting your physician. And all of this, a lot of this is in the handouts. What you've received in the handouts are several sheets of paper. The presentation is on the PowerPoint, but there's also a handout that gives you more information on how to begin an exercise program, and that's what we'll be referring to throughout the next hour. And then what are your schedules? So logistically, how are you going to fit an exercise program into your day? If you're working full-time, what's your commute time to get to work? Then, of course, you're working in the daytime. What's your commute time to get home? Do you have small children that you have to care for, whether it's yours or someone else's? What about a spouse? Are you caregiving for a spouse or a neighbor or a friend? So take into consideration what your schedule is, looking at the day-to-day, the week-to-week, the month-to-month. Certain times of the year get a little hairy. We're coming right up to Thanksgiving in a couple weeks. After Thanksgiving, quickly, somehow, December 25th gets here really quickly. And then all of a sudden, it's going to be January 1st, 2011. So we're about 7 or 8 weeks away from the start of a new year. So taking a look at the time between now and the end of the year, and then the beginning of next year, and what all's going to happen in that time frame. And then setting SMART goals. There's a form that says questions you need to ask yourself. It's a bright green handout. And this form will help you lay out what your physical, medical, orthopedic limitations might be. It'll help you map out what your schedule currently is and how you could fit exercise into your day. And then also it kind of gets the ball rolling on what your goals are. So how to set goals. You want to make sure that you set specific goals. Goals that you can put your finger on, not something generalized. Generalized goal would sound like, I want to lose X amount of pounds, and that's the end of that. You want to say, I want to lose a dress size, so I want to go from X dress size to this dress size, and I want to do it within 6 weeks. So now I'm getting very specific. I have added a specific, measurable goal, and the time I've added is 6 weeks. Also in setting goals, you have to ask yourself, is it important to me? Is it important enough to me that I'm going to take the steps to achieve that goal? The next part of that is it realistic for me to think that I'm going to lose that dress size in 6 weeks? If in the next 6 weeks it's going to be Thanksgiving, we're going to go to Aunt May's house, then down the street to do the potluck, and then we have a potluck at work, and then for 3 weeks in December I'm going to be eating candy, getting baked goods, giving baked goods, and then having holiday open houses and parties, and then the employee holiday open house. So I'm going to be in and around large portions of food. Most of the time, really good food, which I'm going to put myself in a position that it might not be realistic to say that I'm going to get into that next dress size down. So think about the realistic aspect of setting that goal, and then putting a time frame for that goal. Any questions about how to set SMART goals? All right. So let's talk about physical activity. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this program. Physical activity is any form of exercise or movement. So when you all came up, some of y'all came up from Hedrick Building, is that right? So you all had to get picked up and then dropped off. So you had to get onto the bus, get up here, walk from the bus to over here. Some of you might have come from ACC, so you had to do the same thing and wait and take a route. And so that exercise or activity between the time you left your office till you got on the bus, till you got off the bus, till you walked to this room, that's all part of physical activity. If you have a large yard that you're caring for and you're out there doing work, and maybe not this time of year, but in the summer and spring or fall when we're typically getting our yards prepared or the grass prepared or the garden prepared, that's all physical activity. If you have little kids that you're picking up and down, that's physical activity. So all of that counts as physical activity. Why do we do physical activity? Well, I hit on it before. We want to think about our health as we get started in developing a program. We want to reduce stress. I know I use exercise to reduce stress. And then, of course, this whole list here. When you all signed up for this program, you all came probably with a question that you asked yourself that you had to answer. Why do you want to get started with an exercise program? Are there any items on this list that ring for you? How many for you is it health? Just raise your hand. Okay. How about stress reduction? Mm-hmm. Feel good? Do you think about this one very often? Mm-hmm. Weight loss? All right. So this probably right here, this item here, is typically the first one that we hear over at the Wellness Center. I'll talk a little bit about this one here and probably these three here. What about this one? And then kind of goes back to the first one, right? So this is why we do physical activity. So the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to talk about what makes up an exercise program. And you can see the list here: cardiovascular training, strength training, stretching, and mindfulness. Can anybody give me examples of cardiovascular training? Just throw them out there. Treadmill. So walking, running. Anybody doing something now besides treadmill, walking, running? Zumba. I've heard of Zumba. Yep, that's a good one. Anything else? Kickboxing. I heard weights. So weights come to strength training. And weights we'll show you today too. So we will do some exercises before we leave. Well, maybe you won't, but we will. Or maybe I will. Yeah. And then stretching. How many of you do a stretching program already? Have done one before? Have learned how to do stretching before? Okay, good. How many of you take some time out of your day to meditate? Anybody? We'll briefly talk about all of these components, including meditation. All right, so let's hit cardiovascular training. And again, I said in your handouts on the page that says Beginning Exercise Program Basic Guidelines. If you turn to that page, you'll see a whole lineup of how to get started with an exercise program. So we're going to more or less emphasize some of these areas. So frequency, intensity, time, and type. It's important for you to pick an exercise that you like to do. If you're not a walker, or if you're not a runner, or if you're not a kickboxer, or a Zumba dancer, that's not going to be really fun for you, and it's likely that you're not going to stick to your goal, and it's likely that you're going to drop out, and it's likely that you're not going to do the activity. So what are some activities that you all like to do already? Walk. And walking is a good one because it's accessible. So you're doing it most of the time, whether if you work here at the hospital, you know 2 Anderson is the I-40 of the building, and you can walk from Cancer Hospital all the way through to the old clinic. And it's a long haul. And I know that Diane's done some mileage on that the indoor walking plan. So if you work here on hospital campus grounds, I know Dianne can get you straightened up with where to walk, what the mileage is. If you're curious or you want to keep the data, we can get you right with that. What else besides walking?
Some people run.
Right, running, right? But not all of us like running. So what are some of you doing? Zumba? Are there other classes that you take as well? That's your primary one? Okay.
Had a baby.
Gotcha. Kickboxing, I heard? Yeah. Treadmill, walking, and exercise tapes. That's very good. And exercise tapes are really nice because you can do them in the comfort of your own home if you have the equipment. Some of them don't require a whole lot of equipment. What we're going to show you today doesn't require a whole lot of equipment. And you can pick and choose what you want to do. So it might be an hour-long exercise program, but maybe you just have time to do 20 minutes. Doing 20 minutes is a ton lots better than doing nothing at all. All right. So the type is really important, and that's actually what I would think we want to start with, is what do you want to do? And not worried about how many times a week we're going to do it or how long we're going to do it, but what do you really want to do? You got to pick something you really want to do. I have given you all a guest pass for the UNC Wellness Center. If you want to take some time to come over, visit our facility, that pass is good for an entire day. So you could come in the morning, you could take a class, you could come back in the afternoon, take another class, or you could come and walk on the track or walk on our treadmills, ride on our bikes, use the ellipticals. For those of you that work at the Hedrick building, there is a small exercise room there as well, and that's, pared down, but you've got treadmills, ellipticals, strength training equipment, so you do have access to that already. Those of you that work here, there's a room in the neurosciences building on the second floor. So if you go to an equipment orientation with Dianne, she can get you oriented to that equipment in both of those spaces. So most days of the week. So that's a little difficult, would you say? Most days of the week to do physical activity. So some people, I would say, is a more challenging effort, especially if you just had a child or, you're working full-time and your commute is an hour each way. So instead of saying most days of the week, which might sound daunting to a lot of people, to begin an exercise program, we suggest you to do 3 to 5 times a week. So 3 being a minimal every other day sort of schedule and line up. Creating a routine is really important. So if Monday, Wednesday, Friday works for you, stick with Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you can get a day on the weekend, then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday is good, or Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday is good. But starting out with a practical, realistic approach is very, very important. So 3 times a week is good. If you can fit in that extra 4th day or that extra 5th day, do it. Do it. You'll see that you reach your goal a lot faster. And then let's look at intensity. So if you flip to the next page, calculating target heart rate range. This is a calculation that you can do if you plug in your age and then your resting heart rate, which this lays out how to get your resting heart rate. You can fill out those blanks and you can find out what 55 to 85% of your maximum heart rate range is. And that becomes more specific for where your heart health is. So it's a much better predictor of what's going to feel right for you during the intensity. But here's another thing you can do. If you flip the page, there's another section that says exercise intensity, monitoring your pulse rate, and then rating of perceived exertion and self-talk. An easier thing for you to do, if you're out with a group of folks that you're walking with, if you can carry on a conversation, you're probably doing okay. If you're having a labored time talking and it's very difficult, you're winded, you're probably working a little too hard. So you want to drop back a little bit. Okay? If you're singing along and you're gay and you're happy and it just seems easy, it's probably too easy and you need to bump it up a little bit. Okay? So that's the talk test, which is a little quicker for you to assess how you're feeling with the walk or in general with the activity. And then you can also look at the rating of perceived exertion, which is a scale from 0 to 10. And that is understanding the scale. We actually we recommend folks to work between 3, 4, and 5. So that would be moderate, somewhat hard, and hard. Okay? So it's a little different than our academic, 3, 4, 5, that's not passing. Well, it's not about that scale. It's about how you feel and what's going on here, cardiovascularly. Any questions about what we've covered so far? Number of times per week, the intensity, and the type of exercise. All right. So the next piece would be, how much time do I spend doing this? And what we've discovered is that you can do, 10-minute segments, 15-minute segments, 20-minute segments, 30-minute segments, and then add those up together. So if you have a puppy or a dog that you walk every morning, maybe you get 10 or 15 minutes out in that walk. Then you come home from work and you do another 10 or 15 minutes with the dog. You've just done approximately 20 to 30 minutes of exercise. And that all counts towards your exercise goal. All right? And then maybe, you have the opportunity to flex your lunch hour and you can take 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes even to do a walk during the day, especially out of the Hedrick building. It's nice, it's paved. If it's nice weather, you can do that. You can get outside and walk to Friday Center and back. That's got to be a good 10 or 15, 20-minute walk, right, for some of y'all? So for some of you that can get out, that is. That's a really good opportunity as well. So you can add up that time at lunch and that time in the afternoon And there you go. You're up to about 45 minutes now. So you can add up those minutes to get to where you want to be. Or if you do have more time and you can take a longer lunch and you can get into the wellness center room down there or here in neurosciences and you can get a full half an hour in, that's your half an hour. But I would suggest that 30 minutes to 90 minutes is where we want to be with our exercise program. If you're just starting out, I would even say starting out at 15 minutes is a good place to begin. And then build on that. So that first week, 3 times a week, we're doing 15 minutes. The next week, we add 5 more minutes. So we're at 20 minutes. And then the next week, we're at 25 minutes. But we're still being consistent, so it's 3 days a week, every other day. And building on that. Because if you go from 0 to 90, that's very challenging. And then it becomes not realistic for you to stick with that. So starting out easy and at a slower rate will get us to where we want to be, and also we'll stay engaged a lot longer. All right, so let's see. I think we've hit all that. Any questions about cardiovascular training? Yes, sir.
What happens if once you have your program and you want to exercise every other day for so many minutes, and you stick to it? And then you miss a day here, and then you miss a couple of days there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to try and double up a little bit, or is that not something people should do? To exercise 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, because I'm thinking to myself, well, I missed, for whatever reasons.
Sure.
And also, that's one question. The other question is, what do you do when you start getting burned out on your routine?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I don't think I'll do it anymore ever.
Yeah. David's got some really great questions. So the first question focusing in on, what if you miss a day? Is it okay to work 2 days in a row? Absolutely. There's a lot of people that I know that train every single day. Now they're at that place at their fitness level where that's acceptable. And they also have it built into their schedule. That's almost like their caffeine. They can't live without their exercise. So I wouldn't throw a week out and say, oh, I didn't work out this week, so I'm not going to work out next week. I would, if you're able to, double up the workout. So I know what I do when I have a busy week, which typically happens in the middle of the week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I might not work out. But I got Monday in, and then I got Friday. And what I end up doing on Fridays is I will do an hour of cardio to plug in from 30 minutes that I missed during the week. And then I'll spend about 15 minutes doing strength training, which we haven't really shed any light on yet, but we will. So then I'll do that. So I'll get in a longer workout on that Friday. And then on the weekend, I'll just try and find, work it out with my spouse on getting 30 or 40 minutes of cardio in. So I've almost in effect gotten 4 days, 30 minutes each time. And that's my goal. So it really comes back to your goal, David. So if your goal is, I'm going to do alternating days at 30 minutes in each session, and you want to stay with that basically 2 hours for the week of cardiovascular training, if you have the time to fit it in, I would try and fit it in. If you don't, just take it as that week I didn't hit that target for that week, but maybe the next week you could double up so you can get 2.5 hours that next week. And it's always about the goal. So, in this situation, we're talking about if I don't make it because my child got sick and I have to go home for lunch and I won't be able to do my workout today, it's just managing, mostly comes back to the schedule, managing the schedule. Because I think that, and you guys can tell me otherwise, that's really where I get compromised is the schedule. During the workday, it gets really busy. I might work at the wellness center and outside my door is 75 pieces of equipment, but I can't get to it because I'm chained to my desk, and I'm not physically chained to my desk, but there are responsibilities that we're all charged to do day in, day out. I can't get out of my office to do it, and as soon as 5 o'clock rolls around, I gotta get to the daycare. I gotta take care of my children and my family, and so I can't get that workout in for that day. Move it to the next. I try to plan a day where I have an emptier schedule and more flexibility Typically ends up being Fridays, so that's where I pile it on. The second question was, remind me again.
When you get kind of tired of
Tired, okay, burnt out. Oh, good question. So we've been talking about how to get started with a program. David's in a place now where he's been doing exercise frequently enough where he might get burned out. I would say another term would be bored. And what I would do is completely change up your routine. Stop doing what you've been doing and do something completely different. Whether it's take a Zumba class, which is very out of the box, very different, very uncommon. It's a very exciting group fitness class, but not everybody's into it.
What is that? Is it dancing?
Tell us about, it's a dance class, It's a group fitness class, so it's usually in a group of people, and it's really engaging music and exciting music, and the moves are usually fun, and it's dance, but it's all choreographed. So your instructor is, cueing you, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you do what you do.
Where did I get that?
I had classes before.
Yeah.
They,
University, the gym, the Texas gym.
Okay.
They got those
Yeah.
classes at 12 to 1 o'clock. And I think that they got it on Wednesday. You have to pay, of course. You have to pay.
So let's speak a little bit to your resources. We're going to skip around a little bit. So the university has the Student Recreation Center and Ram's Head. And those two facilities do group fitness classes.
Yes. And
Dianne can speak to the Gym and Pool Privilege Pass. So there is an opportunity for us to purchase a Gym and Pool Privilege Pass. The disadvantage of that is a pass just for you. It's not open to your spouse or your dependents. And I would say another disadvantage of that is over there. And when I say over there, it's by the stadium and beyond the stadium. So it's on Stadium Drive. So access is kind of lowered. And of course, if you want to, park on campus, you have to park after a certain time. And so it's talking about access. So Zumba is typically offered in group, fitness settings. So a lot of fitness centers around our area do offer it.
Do they have DVDs out? Because I saw that on TV.
There are DVDs out. I don't know them specifically, but I know that some of them exist. And I couldn't recommend one, but there are home, exercise tapes that exist. Exactly. And it is the new craze, quote unquote. And, it rotates. Kickboxing used to be it. Step aerobics used to be it. High impact aerobics used to be it. So there's always something mainstream that's coming out or that comes out that is the rage. And if you're into the rage, do the rage, But if you know yourself, kickboxing is a higher intensity activity, but Zumba's fun. Zumba's, more creative, more letting loose. You're still burning the calories. But if you're not comfortable being in a group setting, shaking yourself like that, it's not going to be very fun, and you're not going to go. So you kind of got to ask yourself a lot of questions, But to answer David's question, what if you get burned out? So we're looking at a cardiovascular training. And one of the things you're going to see in our workout in the last page is a circuit. And it's two-sided page, so it's a circuit. And we will go through these exercises. But if you're not doing these exercises, you can do them. They're easy. There's not a lot of equipment that's involved. But you can pick up the pace in your exercise. So if your intensity is more moderate, you can jack up your intensity and do interval training. So instead of just walking on the treadmill, you can walk and then jog on the treadmill. Do 2 minutes and then 1 minute. Do 2 minutes and then 30 seconds. Do 3 minutes and then 2 minutes. So you can interval train. You can also do circuit training. So you could do these exercises and give yourself very little rest in between. When I say very little rest, I mean under 30 seconds. So we're going to do squats. Okay, now we're going to do pull-ups. And so giving yourself the shortened amount of rest certainly will keep your heart rate elevated, but it will challenge your system and it will push your envelope. And then it'll, you know, in the big picture, it'll expand your horizons. So it'll push the envelope on your fitness level. It will certainly get you moving, and it'll keep your heart rate elevated for quite a bit of that time. It's not something you want to do all the time, but it is certainly something you want to do, especially when you get to the point where you've plateaued, you're bored, and you just need something to spice up your, you know, your physical activity program. And also, you know, stepping out of the box, I said Zumba, but there's a ton of other activities that we haven't mentioned. We haven't mentioned swimming, riding your bike, a lot of equipment in the fitness arena and industry right now. You know, there are probably 6 different kinds of elliptical training machines out there. You know, there's the Precor, there's the True, there's Life Fitness, there's the Arc Trainer. There are a lot of brands that Octane. There are a Techno Gym. Every brand comes out with something very specific that they've patented, or it's, you know, a waiting patent. So there's a lot of machines that are out there. If you're not a machine person, I would think the walk jog would be a good activity to try out. Has that answered your question, David? Okay. All right. My colleague needs to get started with her section, so we're going to so aerobic activity, we want to do activity so we can fend off most and all of these things. Now, we haven't talked about genetics, but genetics does play a role, obviously, into these diseases. So I'll tell you a very quick 10-second story. I got into exercise because of genetics, because my father had, about, I guess, 15 years ago, had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And then I had my first blood draw and did a full blood panel, and I had high cholesterol. I didn't have the blood pressure, but I had cholesterol. And that was one of the sort of the turning points in my young life at that time where I was like, I need to grab a hold of my health. Because, you know, I was eating a certain way that I grew up, you know, eating out a lot, fast food, and in college, so eating a lot of quick, easy, higher fat, higher saturated fat meals, and not living a healthier life. And that's the turning point for me. So I still have cholesterol taken probably twice a year because I'm monitoring that. But this is something you can change. These are things that can be changed if you incorporate physical activity and a healthier diet. So I will speak to that because I have seen it happen in my own life. But I've also seen it happen where you don't incorporate physical activity, you don't incorporate a healthy diet, and I have had loss in my family. My father did pass away at quite an early age, at 60 years old, and he had complications from diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, and ultimately heart disease. So that's the sad, harsh reality of what happens with us. And it's not even aging. It's the things that we're doing now in our 30s, 40s, 50s will impact us very, very quickly before we even know it. Genetics, though, kind of rushes us to that racing point, gets us to that point where we really got to get a handle on these. So on that note, although I'm not cheerful but true, I will pass it on to Dianne, and we're going to talk about strength training.
Is that good, Bob? Okay. What we're really going to do is make Jamy work out. That is the plan. That's why she gets to wear the exercise gear today. So for those of you who don't know, Jamy used to be my boss at the Wellness Center back when I was a lowly little fitness instructor. So she's taught me everything I know.
Not true.
It's very true. When I say I've worked here since 2004, I've worked for Jamy since 2004. Okay, so strength training. So we're back to the fit, but this time we only have one T because our type is strength training. So to begin a program, you're back to that 2 to 3 days per week. So this is in addition to the cardio. So you can obviously do strength and cardio the same day of the week, but they don't replace each other. You have to do both. Intensity, 10 to 15 repetitions for 1 to 2 sets. So we're going to talk about that, but 10 to 15 repetitions is a good middle ground for both gaining strength and toning, because every time I show strength equipment upstairs in neuro to women, it's always like, I don't want to get big, I don't want to be muscly. You have to work really, really, really hard to become big and muscly. So the 10 to 15 repetitions is, like I said, a good strength building, but also you're going to tone as well. And 1 to 2 sets. So a set is, so you're doing bicep curls, you do 10 to 15, rest for a little bit, and then do 10 to 15 times again, and that's 2 sets. Everybody used to do the whole 3-set thing, but the time it takes to do that 3rd set doesn't equal the results that you get. So it's much easier just to do I was taught power of 2. I don't know where it's, I don't remember where the 2s are, but 2 sets was definitely the key to that. And then time is 20 to 40 minutes. If you're doing circuit training, and like Jamy said, where you want to ramp up your intensity, you can get it done faster. But it's just sort of a good guideline is to say if you're going to do a full body workout, it probably will take you 20 to 40 minutes. So what the circuit training that we included is what is called functional movements. So it's things that you probably do in your everyday life. And it doesn't require much equipment, usually just your body weight. And it's things that your body has done before. Squat is always a very good example of that. And if you look on the very, very, very last page, you'll see pictures. We may not go in the exact order. But a squat, Miss Jamy will demonstrate, is basically sitting down. You all do this every day. Now I can get up and move if y'all need to see her. When we were assigned this room, we're like, no one's going to be able to see. The key to this when you squat is you don't want your knees to go over your toes, because that's going to give you knee problems, knee pain, issues. So the story that Jamie's used before and I've been taught as well is if you're in the woods, you need to go to the bathroom, you don't want to pee on your boots. So you definitely want to stick the butt out as far as you can while keeping your back straight, and you literally just sit down into yourself. So now you're either hovering over that gas station toilet, or you're peeing in the woods not wanting to get on your boots. So that's the visual I want you to have. So your butt can be on camera. Perfect. So I'm an arm person too. My husband makes fun of me when I stick out my arms when I squat, but that to me helps with the balance. So the butt's going out, the hands are going out, and you're not going to fall over.
That's what I'm trying to.
About
Hip width.
Okay.
hip width.
Hip width.
All right.
You could do it closer, you could do it further, you could do
Okay.
pliés.
Okay.
But to start off with, hip width.
Okay.
And the picture that we have has it with a ball. So if you have an exercise ball, it's really kind of cool to put it behind your back and let the ball roll down the wall. And that's going to support your back, make sure your back stays straight, and adds a little fun element to it. But then the more advanced is doing it just standing up. All right. Then we'll just go down this list, but these are all listed up here. Station 2 is pull-ups. I didn't bring bands. We didn't talk about that. But you can, if you don't have an actual bar, you're at a gym, or my husband, good Lord, bought the iron gym where it goes over your door frame, and we carry it on vacation with us everywhere we go now. It's terrible. I'm like, what about the baby stroller? We have to have room for the iron gym. But essentially, you're just pulling your body up, or you can do bands where you pull the bands down, and that's working chest and shoulders. Back. Station 3, abdominal crunches. So we'll see if we can get her on camera.
If you can't see on that side, you can certainly come around.
So they don't do sit-ups anymore because everybody started having serious low back issues with that. So I know when I was in elementary school, we had to do the sit-up. We had to come all the way up and hit your knees. These are just called crunches. Or curl-ups. So essentially all she's doing is getting her shoulder blades up off the floor, but her low back stays on the floor at all times. You can put your arms wherever you want. So she was doing behind the head, in front, straight up, whatever you're comfortable with. Just don't, if you're going to do behind your head, don't pull your neck or don't pull your head. And she was looking at the ceiling the whole entire time. That's to keep your spine straight. Then we've got step-ups. So if you have a step, I know we've got a step up in neuroscience. I don't believe we've got one at Hedrick. But you can use the bench that's there. Chair. So all she's doing is literally stepping up and stepping down. So you can go in the stairwell of Hedrick. It's not used that frequently. Take 2 steps versus the 1. And this is a great leg exercise that costs you nothing.
Stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Stairs in your home.
Yeah. So yeah, you can just use the stairs. And then 5 is push-ups. So you can do the wall, counter, mat. So the easiest is to literally do it on the wall. And so you're only doing a portion of your body weight. Where if you were doing it on the floor, they call it girl modified push-ups. We're now calling it not girl, where you do it on your knees. So that's doing just the upper part of your body. Now she's leaning into the table, so she's doing a little bit more of her body weight. Hands are shoulder width apart, back straight. Now she's doing crackled. She's doing modified. And the same sort of thing, like we talk about hands shoulder width apart, but you can always go wider, lower. You can do it on the ball. The ball is great. That could be another hour to discuss balls. 6 back extensions. Y'all giggling at what I said?
We're talking about how to stay on the ball.
Oh. I'll come over to Hedrick. I'll show you. So back extensions, these are very important because low back is an issue for everybody. And so what she's doing is just laying on her stomach and lifting the upper part of like her shoulders and back up. So a lot of people call it Superman because you can get into the Superman position and sort of alternate right arm, left leg if you want to get your legs involved. Or you can just do your upper body. Good job. And then 7 is tricep dips. So you can do this on a chair as well. So she's doing an easier form where her legs are closer to her, keeping her back straight, and she's just sort of lowering herself down. More complicated, now she's on her heels, so now she's lifting more of her body weight, and so therefore more weight on her triceps. 8 is lunges. So lunges are just as important as squats where you don't want your knee to go over your toe. So what she's doing is that back leg that's lower, she's just literally lowering that leg, and the one in front, so her left leg, isn't moving at all. She's not putting any effort to move that. It just naturally bends when she lowers the leg behind. I always recommend doing stationary lunges because you can control your movement. You can watch yourself in the mirror if you're doing it in the weight room. You can do walking lunges where you see people walk around the room while lunging. Totally fine, but you end up losing a lot of your form that way because you're so worried about walking somewhere and not really paying attention to where your bodies are. You can do alternating. So she was just, the first one she was doing is just right leg, right leg. Now she's alternating right, left. And that's a way to do a walking lunge without physically walking around the room. Shoulder raises. She's got her little baby twos. You can do your body weight. You can do dumbbells. You can do cans of soup. You can do whatever your kids, whatever you want to do. So she's doing side raises, lateral raises. You don't ever want to go above your shoulder. Yes, ma'am.
How much are those weights? Are they 2 pounds?
Those are 2 pounds.
When I was walking with some that was like, I had no idea till I started walking. I did like about 2 miles. It was like 5 pounds.
Goodness.
But then we was kind of rotating because they was about to kill me.
But you say, were you walking outside? Because you can't like just put them down. Okay. Yeah.
It was pretty hard.
5 pounds, I'm sure. Station 10 is lifts. So these are physically lifting something. You can either lift nothing and just do the motion. You could do dumbbells. You can have a box, a kid. I'm all about using my 9-month-old. I'm telling you. It's the way to go. But the key thing with this is keeping your back straight. Yes, David?
I said not to lift with your back. Always lift with your legs.
With your knees.
All right, let me tell you what I'm doing here. I am fixing my hips and thinking through it so that my hips are what stabilizes me from rolling forward or back. And I am fixing my abdomen and my lower back so that I'm not rolling my back like that. So I'm pushing my rear back. The hips become where all the movement happens. Say that again for the camera.
Oh. So she's fixing her hips, and she's like concentrating her stomach and her back so that she doesn't curl forward or bow back. And so really her hips are the pivot point of the actual motion that's happening. So keeping that back straight and that stomach tight is really the key to that exercise. So she's lifting with her back, but kind of not really.
I'm not doing this.
Yeah. That's the key. That is definitely the key. And that's why you see mirrors in gyms. Is really, you want to check yourself out, but you also really want to pay attention to your form. And I always tell people, please watch yourself while you're doing the exercise, especially the back, because you don't even realize you can be doing an arm exercise and sort of rolling the back and not paying attention. Calf raises. You can do this anywhere, body weight. So she's doing just one calf at a time. You can do this. I do this all the time. At the elevator, I work on 9th floor Memorial, so if you know where that is, there's one tiny elevator that gets up there. So I always just get up and just do toe raises. Just to, one, keep me occupied, but two, it's just a quick way to get that exercise in. But you can do one leg at a time. You can do it on stairs. The key if you do it on stairs is not to put yourself in the negative. So you always want to do flat and then go up. Because if you go down into the negative, then you're stretching and not strengthening, and that's going to be too much weight on that muscle. And the last one we got are your classic bicep curls. Can't go wrong with these. You've done them a million times, hopefully. The one thing that I always coach people and find is when people do bicep curls, their forearms ends up hurting, and that's because they're doing the super cool curling at the end. That's totally different exercise. So you want to keep the wrist straight, and therefore you're literally just working the bicep and nothing else. Any questions on those? That was all really quick, we know. Knees, like I said, she used 2 weights, a chair, tubing, maybe an exercise ball, and that's it. So for like $20, you definitely can buy anything you need, if you need to buy anything at all, if you just didn't want to do your body weight. All right. And we got to go, so if y'all need to leave, let me know. Benefits, we all know them: increased strength, help prevent or limit osteoporosis, injury prevention. The older you get, the more weight-bearing exercises you need to do. So, yes, swimming is great, bike is great, but you really do need to be up on your feet walking, because that's going to help your osteoporosis in the long run. And then flexibility. I am the worst with the stretching routine. You saw I did not raise my hand when Jamie asked, do you have a stretching routine? But it is so equally important. You've got the fit there, you've got it in your handouts, but really it's an everyday thing, whether you do it when you get up in the morning, right before you go to bed, during commercials. DVR has screwed up my working out routine because I don't watch commercials anymore to waste that 2.5 minutes in between shows. It's always static stretching, so you see that last T is type, so you don't want to bounce anytime you're stretching. It needs to be whole, full body. My husband and I argue over how many seconds. He's a physical therapist, so he's the 30-second man, and I'm like, I don't have time to do 30 seconds, so I'm more of a 15. And then meditation. So Kathy, who's our counterpart, did a great meditation lunch and learn a couple of months back, which was fantastic. We have video of it. I encourage you to watch it if you haven't seen it. But it is important to, even if you don't think that you're meditating, have a time where it's just calm and relaxing. Ladies, that's my bus time. I do park and ride over at Hedrick. That is I'm reading a book, so I'm not truly meditating, but that's my 10 minutes of decompressing throughout the day before I do have to go pick up the baby and do all that stuff, because after that, there's no time for meditation. And then putting it all together, that's the challenge, is getting that cardiovascular 3 to 5 times a week, strength 2 to 3, and then doing the meditation and flexibility daily. It's a tall order, but it can be done. And like Jamy had said, just little bit by little bit by little bit at a time. And we do have resources. I know we gave you a ton of paper, but that's to try and show you that there are resources here at UNC that can help, as well as in the community. Do you guys have any questions? Cool. Thank you.
I did want to take a minute to tell you about, there's a brochure that you all got. It's the Weight to Wellness program. It is a 12-week weight management program that we offer at the Wellness Center. It is 2 hours once a week. And the first hour is education, and the second hour is physical activity. And throughout this class, you're going to be coached, you're going to be supported, you're going to have a dietitian that oversees most of the nutrition-based lectures. She'll oversee your food records. So part of the work for you is to attend class, do food records, and also participate in physical activity. But throughout the class, you're going to be receiving information, being educated, being supported, being motivated. And for those of you that are looking for taking the next step in changing your health and gaining that wellness and well-being, this is a class for you. There is an investment to the class, so it's a $400 class if you're a member, or $600 if you're not a member. And that $600, really, that difference is paying for the 3-month membership.